Welcome to the Home Recording Show, episode 308. I'm John Tidey.
I'm Ryan Canestro.
And in this episode, we're talking about how you can level up your mixing skills. This came up a little bit in the previous conversation we had with Mike Robinson. And this topic was actually inspired by the Six Figure Creative podcast. They had a recent episode on the 7 levels of freelancers. And this got my gears turning on how can I apply this to mixing specifically and my own skills. So I started writing down some ideas, and I think this might make it for an interesting episode, even though I haven't exactly put these steps into process. Let's give it a shot. So
let's find out what our levels are.
Right. So
no,
it's so common to say that this plugin leveled you up, or
it's the plugins that do.
Yeah, a particular skill, you feel like you need to get to the next level. How do you get to the next level without knowing what level you're at currently? And I think most people may overestimate what level they're at and also not really know how to measure what level you're at. And with something like audio mixing, where maybe you don't do it every day,
subjective.
It's very subjective. And a lot of the time it depends on the quality of the content that you're getting to work on, if it's not your own music. But yeah, there's so many factors there. How do you measure it? I'm going to propose that you record yourself doing it. Just start recording in an app like OBS or ScreenFlow or whatever it is to capture your screen. And you just sit down and work on a mix. And you watch it back and you think about, where did I second guess myself? Where did I make obvious mistakes? Where was I hesitating? Kind of the obvious thing that we can measure is speed. How long did it take to get from, starting the session to something you're happy with, whether it's the rough mix or whether it's the finished mix? Speed is something that we can always improve on, I think.
Well, it's interesting to watch the game film on yourself.
Yeah.
Trying to see okay, so when you're in it, you're in it. You're not objectively looking at what you are doing, but then stepping outside of that, knowing what you just done, watching the footage, it could be interesting to see what's actually happening when you're not focused on the task.
Right. And every time I make a course for my website or just a video where I'm mixing, I will learn so much in the editing process of that video or course, because I'm watching myself back. I'm seeing where what felt like 5 seconds was actually 45 seconds of EQing or compression, or just looking at the list of plugins and not being able to decide, or going through presets and then not using any of the presets. Like, all these things you waste time on, take away from your focus. It's just a waste.
Well, I tell people all the time that I learned more by doing this podcast than I did in most other things, because trying to have to explain something I already knew, I learned more by doing that. But then by listening back to what I even said, hearing myself say it, I was like, well, I didn't mention that. I didn't mention that. How does that tie into that? It made me think more. It put me more in my own head in a good way.
Yeah, teaching is a great way to learn a lot of times, having to explain yourself. So the first step, I'm going to say recording yourself, doing your mix, recording whatever it is whatever skill it is you're trying to learn, recording yourself, having some document that you can look back on and analyze. That's going to be very important. Once you identify some of the things that you can improve upon, how are you going to improve upon those things? So you're going to do things like invest money in mentors, in courses, in maybe better plugins because you're constantly struggling with some certain thing. This issue that you're constantly having, plugins crashing, or maybe inserting the plugin takes 45 seconds and that takes you out of the moment. You can get rid of those plugins and switch them for something else. Money is not always the first thing you should do. The next thing is investing time. You spend time, again, on education, on talking to people, on thinking about things and writing them down and all those sorts of things to get better at that skill, to really understand what the issues are or some fundamental aspect of mixing that you hadn't realized before, why you're always struggling with it.
Yeah, and making changes, like just taking the time to understand what's working and what's not working.
Right.
That's a great use of your time to just become more efficient.
Right. From there, another way you can invest time is dedicating certain sessions as in time at the desk working, to not mixing, but mastering your plugins. taking all of your compressors and shooting them out, taking some new plugin you got or some plugin you haven't used in a while, hearing it on every single source, hearing it on bass, hearing it on drums, hearing it on kick and snare, hearing it on lead vocals and background vocals, and understanding where it's good and where you might use it. And you just, if it ticks any boxes in where it sounds good, you're going to store that for the next time you mix. And then that is one thing that you don't need to experiment with, because you can just go right to that. And if you find something good, if you find a particular setting that works on your bass, especially if there's a lot of common areas where you're using the same instrument sources, like it's always the same P bass that you're recording, and every mix that you're going to do is going to have that same signal chain, you can find a certain setting in the EQ or in the compression settings, amp settings, things like that, and create a preset so that you can get right to that point from the start. So that's another time-saving thing, energy-saving thing, automation.
And document all of this, because you're not going to remember it all.
No.
When you go through and shoot out all your plugins and you'd be like, oh, I'll remember that this one little esoteric compression plugin works great on stand-up bass, you're never going to remember that. Not in a million years. So document all of that. Give yourself some kind of sheet that you can write everything down on, that you know where it is. And then also save your plugins and signal chains for things that you are commonly using that you know work. And it's great to experiment and kind of, because sometimes we get locked into the same thing all the time, which can maybe be great or maybe be the thing that's holding you back.
That's what I was thinking right there.
This experimentation is amazing.
Yeah. And having that with no expectation that you're like working on a mix, you're working on your skills during that session, that 1 hour.
Yeah. Because you don't have the pressure to do the job. You can just do this one thing.
Yeah. And you're training your ears, making more wrinkles in your brain, getting this going.
Ooh, brain wrinkles.
Yeah. Okay, so then getting feedback. So you've done a mix, you've analyzed it yourself. You know what's kind of wrong with it. Let's do another mix and then send that off to someone else. A mentor, a Facebook group that just does mixes, mix critiques and things like that. I'll listen if you pay me. Discord groups, like we had Mike Robinson. He's got the unofficial Reaper creators Discord. I always forget the name of it, but there's a
link below.
There's a channel there where you can get feedback on your mix. I've always found the getting feedback part difficult, because I'll submit a mix for a mix contest. You know, everyone's using free plugins and everyone's got the same tracks, and you mix it, and 1 month I'll win the contest and the next month I'll have the lowest scores. And the only feedback I get is, toms are kind of meh. Toms are not that great. That's not enough feedback for me. So it's got to be, to go from the best score to the lowest score, it's got to be something more fundamental, like just overall the balances are completely off, but for some reason I'm not getting the feedback that I need.
Well, and if you can have a couple peers where you have people that you can consistently give it to over time, know what they think of your mixes, know what they think of professional mixes. So you can kind of calibrate all that too in your mind of, this person's going to say this. I know that before I even give it to them, but what do you think of this mix? If you have a couple different opinions that you can consistently go to, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Because everyone's going to have a completely different opinion. Some songs I think sound amazing. Other people go, oh, why do you even care about this?
Yeah.
And some songs that other people think are amazing, I'm like, that sounds like just sterile and boring to me. But it's so subjective, and you never know how people are going to react, but you can kind of gauge how, after many, many tries, how someone's going to see something you're doing.
This is important even before you have paid clients, but it's also important during those special projects where it's higher stakes. And if you have a team of people that can quickly get you back feedback without putting any uncertainty on the artist, without showing any uncertainty to the artist, then that's a great thing to have.
And remember, even therapists have therapists.
True. All right. So let's talk about a strategy for getting better in, let's say, 1 week, 30 days, anything like that. We're basically just investing time or money into those things that we've talked about so far. Maybe 1 hour a day, we are shooting out plugins, and we're creating a session where we've got, 6 different basses on different tracks. And then further on in the timeline, we've got drums, different types of kick drums, different types of snare drums, just different samples and things that we can apply plugins to and quickly A/B or ABC up to F, different effects chains and things like that, where we're not only training our ears, we're understanding the plugins better, seeing where they work well and don't work well. And then we're making effects chains that we can use again later and take all of this knowledge, boil it down into 2 clicks when we're actually in the mix. And so besides that exploration session, we're doing related things to that skill. Maybe it's watching a video about how to use a particular plugin. We're watching interviews with mixers. We're talking to our mentor, or educational, but not an infinite amount of time on that. Maybe an hour a day. We're limiting ourselves to the amount of content input and then hands-on.
And there should be a ratio of maybe an hour of input, but maybe 4 hours of applying that input.
That's what I was thinking.
Instead of the other way around.
Exactly, something like that. 4-to-1 ratio of working hands-on to content coming in, research, education, feedback, those sorts of things. Then, take that first mix that you did, do it again. Can you do it faster? When you watch it back, are you still getting stuck on those same things? All those aspects that you can improve on. Are you seeing the same things again and again? Make notes of those things that you can improve on. Let's say you took 10 minutes out of your mix to set up drum triggers. Could you have saved that once you got to that point so that your next mix takes 2 clicks and you've got your favorite kicks? You've got 5 of your favorite kicks ready to go on separate tracks, which is muted maybe. You've got
building your own templates,
automation, track templates, plugin presets, even sessions where you can drop sounds in and hear your 10 favorite guitar tones with the DI tracks that the band sent you, and you just drop them across different tracks and A, B, C, compare them. And then you take that effects chain, drop it into your project. Those are things that you can do. I got ideas like that from the URM Academy, the speed mixing course. I actually did Reaper content for that course, so I got to see the full thing Joel Wanasek did in Cubase. I watched that video. I took all of the things that he talked about, made Reaper versions of that. It's a really cool course, but it's not available at all times, which makes it hard to promote. But yeah, I got a ton out of that, and I put a lot of those ideas into my Mixing in Reaper Volume 3 class. I think we've covered most of it. I think just having a strategy and thinking about what can you do every single day, even if it's small, to just grow that skill every single day. I know a lot of people, they are either paralyzed by not being able to get started. There's so many things that their watch later list on YouTube is hundreds of videos and they don't know where to start.
Breaking it up into smaller bite-sized pieces is probably the way to do it. Because if you're just staring at the sun, you're not going to get anything done. It's just too much. But if you can just say, okay, let's break this down into, I can do this small thing on Monday, and then I can do this other small thing on Tuesday. And then just, even if you only have an hour a day after work before, going to bed and doing it all over again, if you can break it down into smaller chunks that you can just do each day, it doesn't seem like some monumental task.
Right.
It's not like I need 12 hours to do this. Well, break it up over 2 weeks, Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
An hour a day.
This should be a daily habit, just getting better. We talked about things like 4 hours to 1 hour of, that's 5 hours a day. That's a lot. But if this is your full-time job, or if you want this to be your full-time job, you want to get better, you want to be paid premium prices to mix, you have to put in the hours. And if you don't have the clients now, it's probably because your skills aren't quite up to the level they need to be to demand a full calendar or full bank account.
And that could be social skills too, which is something that you have to practice and learn when you're running your own business, is dealing with clients in a social way and getting things booked and answering emails on time and consistently. Those are the kind of things, if someone sends you an email and you're like, I'm not going to respond to that until after the weekend, some of those people will just go away. There's some of those kind of things too that you have to mix in.
There's probably someone else that will answer right away or get on a phone call right away with those people, and you miss out. The 6 Figure Creative Podcast talks about all those topics in depth, the social stuff, It's not specific to mixing. It's photography, art, freelancing in general in creative fields. And, how to avoid clients ghosting you. How do you figure out what to charge? All those topics. They've got 140 episodes or so, I think now.
And we've talked a lot over the last 2 episodes about pulling from different resources, even different DAWs, different, entirely different schools of thought, different careers, different paths to all funnel into this thing we're doing. And
taking concepts from sound design and Foley work and applying that to drum mixing. That's something that can really give you an advantage.
We're even getting into like self-help books and photography tips, like whatever it takes, pull from every different source you can to be the best at what you do. And there's a lot of the self-help stuff applies, especially doing what we do. You're basically starting your own business. You are employee number 1 of this new business. And, sometimes you have to treat that like that. What would you expect of your employees? Do you want them working on making sure that they're better at what they do every day, making sure that they are treating the customers correctly? Think of it like that sometimes and then put it back on you. What would you want as a boss to your employees?
Yeah, when you're a freelancer and you're not super busy, it's very easy to just spend time on playing video games or spend too much time on content.
Netflix and chill.
And it's tough to be disciplined about this stuff. And actually, I think when you kind of plateau, when you've got enough money in the bank account, when you've got enough incoming work to sustain yourself.
Comfortable is a horrible place to be.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's kind of where I am in this stuff right now. I don't advertise mixing work anymore. I've got a little bit that came in recently, and I'm thinking maybe now is the time to do kind of a sprint to get better quickly over 30 days, something like that. And this episode has been kind of talking through that, what I'm thinking, what I'm planning on going through. And I think that would make an interesting story at the end of it.
I think so too. Let's do the follow-up on John's progress over the next 30 days.
Well, that's going to force me to do it. And often making things like this, making a blog post, just going through the process makes my brain think I've already done it.
But now we're making you accountable. So we're gonna come back here and see what you did and how you did it.
All right. Yeah, this will be fun.
But I even had one of those moments on set last week. There was this hum of a transformer on set, and it was just bumming me out. Like I felt like I just couldn't get good audio on set that day. And it was minimal, and post can probably get rid of it. But it was one of those things where like I felt like I wasn't good at my job, even though I know I'm good at my job. I do this day in, day out. But you're going to have days like that too, where you're down on yourself and you're like, I should be better than I am right now. And you should always be trying to be better than you were the day before. And once you get to that complacent level, and we've all done it, we've all gotten there, it's like, everything's going great. I don't have to keep putting energy and time and money into this. But you can stagnate, and you can sometimes feel like you're doing a great job and sometimes feel like you're not. That's all part of the human process. But I always do want to keep pushing forward, and I always want to keep upping my game. And I feel like I have been, but sometimes I think I might put too much pressure on myself. So again, balance.
Right.
We keep talking about that.
All right. That's all I've got for this topic. And I feel like that flew by. I don't know how long we've been recording for. That felt like it went really quickly.
Well, we should record ourselves and watch it back to see how long it actually took. Call back. So we just want to let you guys know if there's something you want us to talk about, if there's ideas for shows that you guys have, please leave us a comment. We'll definitely read those. We'll read them right here, and then we'll talk about it. So let us know what you guys want to hear about.
And if you want to support the show, there is our Buy Me a Coffee link. Links in the description of this video and on the show notes on the website. $5, it gets your name into the end of the show, and it's a great way to support what we're doing. It's right now, it's the official best way to support the show. And besides that, there are Amazon affiliate links that you buy anything after you click through. It gives us a tiny little commission. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. We will see you again in 2 weeks.
Thank you all for being here.